Now we'll talk about how you should contact the ball. Staying relaxed with your arms throughout the arm swing motion allows you to swing with maximum speed, and speed is power in volleyball. Anytime you tense up any part of your body, especially at the wrong time, is going to slow you down and cause further injury. So staying loose and relaxed is how you're going to generate a very fast arm, which is another aspect of spiking power. Ball contact will depend on how high you reach above the net. If your hand is below the net, then you need to contact it slightly under the ball. And I like to view the ball as an earth. So here's the equator. Now I'm from North America, so I use those references. We have Mexico at and slightly below the equator, Central America way below the equator, and then we have the USA slightly above the equator, and then Canada significantly above the equator. So if I'm reaching below the net, you need to contact it at Mexico or slightly below, and you should aim for contacting the ball at the base of your middle finger. So that's pretty much where I should be focusing my contact, right here. If my hand is slightly above the net, then you can contact it right dead center at the equator here. Now if you can reach above the net, like maybe forearm, wrist above the net or slightly higher, you can creep up and you can have the base of that middle finger contact it at USA, Canada, or if you're a super high jumper or you're really tall, you can contact that at Alaska, pretty much on top of the ball. Now your hand needs to be somewhere between really loose and really stiff. So I call this hand relaxed firm. So it's relaxed, but still just enough tension to contact the ball. And a great exercise you can do to practice ball contact is by just slapping the ball and keeping your hand relaxed enough so that it takes the shape of the ball. You want your hand to stick to the ball. You don't want it to bounce off. If it bounces off, that means my hand's too stiff. If it doesn't stick at all, it's too loose, so let it stick. And you should have a really loud slap sound as I'm contacting the ball. Also, make sure you're contacting the ball with a straight wrist. We don't want to bend our wrist too much this way unless you're trying to do some tricky cutting. In general, we want the wrist to be mostly straight. That's going to be optimal for the follow through of your swing. Now we'll talk about the wrist snap. Now, in my opinion, the wrist snap is overly emphasized when spiking. In reality, it only contributes roughly maybe 5% to your spiking power. Majority of the power is going to come from the torque of your hips and shoulders, and then your elbow extension, and then the speed of your arm. And in all honesty, you don't need to snap the ball to actually hit in or to hit hard. You'll see many of the great attackers focusing so much on arm speed, and as long as they contact it at the right point of the ball and follow through downward, the ball is going to go in. I like to use snapping more of changing direction of the ball, or if I can't follow through, if it's too tight, then I can just snap it down, sacrifice a little bit of power, but at least place it well. Now if you have that perfect set, perfect spacing, single blocker up, then you can really follow through and get that extra 5% power with a nice follow through. But don't let the snap distract you from executing all the other more essential elements of the arm swing. We've talked about ball contact and the snap. Now let's talk about the follow through. Majority of the time when you're spiking, you do want to follow through all the way to the ball. Just like when you're boxing, you don't want to stop at the target. You want to punch past the target, because that's where the power does come from, is the finish and the follow through. And it's also easier on your shoulder. If you try to stop and snap and stop there, that requires so much force to stop all that momentum. And that's what also contributes to shoulder, elbow, and wrist injuries when people snap only and just stop at the ball. So let the energy travel through the ball, and wherever you follow through is generally where the ball is going to go. If I can follow through in the center of my body, across my body, or away from my body, but the starting mechanics are exactly the same, my follow through just might change it up. But no matter what, majority of the time, I'm following through completely through the ball at maximum velocity. The only time I should stop is if I'm really tight to the net, and if I follow through, I might net, or you're just trying to snap over a block and try to make it go over. The fourth step to practicing arm swing is actually tossing yourself the ball without jumping and just working on applying the arm swing technique to the ball. Now I recommend tossing with two hands because it helps simulate the transition from my backswing to my double arm lift into my loaded or Nike position. If you toss with one hand, it's not the end of the world, but I always try to reinforce that transition from jumping to arm swing as much as I can. So when I toss, I'm stepping back at the same time to open up my body. Two-hand toss, loaded right away. You can just practice this motion to work on the timing and the spacing, because by the time I contact it, it should be here. Once you get your toss down, now you can start contacting the ball. So really try to reinforce that high elbow contact in position 2 and staying mostly upright. We talked about a little dip in the shoulder is okay, but we want to make sure that I'm in this high contact position, slightly in front of my hitting shoulder here. Once you have consistent contact with consistent arm swing technique, the last step is to speed it up. And one of my favorite exercises that I still do today, even though I've been playing volleyball for over 20 years, is a super high toss down ball into the wall. Now this one does require you to toss with one hand. I know I just talked about trying to toss with two hands as much as you can, but if you're specifically developing arm swing speed, tossing it super high helps you speed up your arm, and it's going to come down faster than a normal volleyball set. And the way your body has to adapt is by swinging super fast, and the only way you can do that is by staying as loose as possible. So I'm going to toss with my right arm. You could do this with your left arm. I found that I can generally toss higher if I really let go with one arm. The last topic we'll talk about is variations in arm swing. We talked about a couple hitters that hit super hard with their elbow high in this position. Some people with elbow just back at shoulder height, and other hitters where it's down here. In the process of staying loose, you might find yourself having a little bit more of a loop, and that's okay. It's your body's way of trying to combine speed and torque, and everyone's body is different, and also people's bodies change over time. As long as your elbows are not going out at any point in the process, that's the most important. It's also good to have different types of arm swings in your toolbox. Sometimes you might need a short and snappy arm swing when you're late, or you need to quickly get to the ball. Sometimes you need that big roundhouse to really generate power on the ball when you got a triple block and you just got to punch through on a really high volleyball set and you have lots of time to load.